I'm ordering the mandatory closure of all non-essential workplaces in the province of Ontario.
Both Ontario and Quebec bringing down the hammer on non-essential businesses. The two provinces taking additional steps to shut down workplaces amid the growing pandemic. Well, for more on what these measures mean for the workforce, we're joined by employment lawyer Lior Samfiru. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's begin with the restrictions and how they will affect employees. Simple question, complex answer, I'm sure, but sort of lay it out in terms of what you see this meaning.
Well, the employees that are going to be affected really are going to be falling in two categories. Those employees that are off work because the business is struggling, their costs being cut, those employees have more entitlements in the sense that they have the option to treat a layoff, a reduction in pay, a reduction in hours as a termination and get severance. And they may consider doing that because they may not be able to live off EI. They may need the additional compensation to get by. Now, on the other hand, those employees who are going to be out of work strictly because the business is shut down and the company cannot operate, those employees may have much more limited entitlements. They may be unable to get compensation and severance from their employer. They can only get EI, which pays a portion of their compensation and is going to be delayed because of all the applications. So those really are the options for the employees affected.
Let's talk about even applying for EI. I mean, talk about the delays when it comes to that. What are we seeing and what can we expect?
Yeah, we've heard over 500,000 people last week. We expect up to 2 million people to sort of apply for EI. The system is not built to handle that. And because of that, there's going to be tremendous delays. So even though the waiting period to qualify for EI has been waived, it's going to take weeks and weeks to get it. In the meantime, people have to live. Some people will have to use vacation days. That's fine to do that, to bridge that gap. The reality is the system is not equipped. There's not enough manpower to handle this. So you're going to see delays of weeks to get EI and get money in people's hands.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is so many people don't pay into EI. There are a lot of contract workers, a lot of, I'm hearing more and more businesses, and not only just not being able to get through the next few weeks, but what will happen afterwards, because a lot of people are now asking themselves, can I even sustain this business when this is all said and done?
Yeah, a lot of self-employed individuals, even those in the gig economy, your Uber drivers who may still be working but not earning income, not earning sufficient income to make a living, they're left out in the cold in a sense because they may not qualify for EI. They're self-employed, they're still working, but they cannot live. So I think the government must do more to protect these individuals, to get money into their hands, or potentially with employers, to allow employers to continue operating by defraying some of the costs for employers so they can keep more people employed. I don't think the government right now doing its best, and I wouldn't want to be in its shoes, but it's not necessarily doing enough and should be doing much more.
So speaking of that, we heard a big number, $82 billion in aid money announced last week. I mean, some people say this isn't even close to what is actually going to be needed, but does some of that money address some of those people that you were talking about?
Yes, but not enough. A lot of these individuals that are vulnerable, like I said, your gig economy workers, it's not coming to them because they're still working, they're not employed, there's not a good mechanism to get money into their hands. So it's either about putting more money out there or making sure that some of this $82 billion does go into the most vulnerable individuals that earn a living, may not be protected by employment laws because they're self-employed and now may not even be able to qualify for EI and compensation. They still have family, they still have kids. So I think we do need to rethink how we distribute that money, who gets it, and how much money is going to be coming.
So, Lior, I want to ask you some specific questions about layoffs. I mean, some people are saying these are temporary layoffs depending on the business. But what happens after? The governments have said that, look, you will have your job when this is all said and done. But if a business cannot afford these employees, what protection do people have?
The reality is, and this is, I don't think there's any doubt about this, that a lot of these businesses are not going to be around any long enough to hire these people back. A lot of small businesses are going to go under. And as the old saying goes, you cannot get blood from a stone. So employees that are put on a temporary layoff now and are not hired back are going to be left with nothing but EI. There's not going to be severance if the company is bankrupt, which is why there's a lot of misconceptions about temporary layoffs. But for most people, they're not required to accept them. They have the option to treat the temporary layoff, even though it's temporary, as a termination and require the company to pay severance right now. And for some employees, that may be an option because there's the value of having compensation now as opposed to in the future when there may not be a company around to pay it. So I've spoken with many individuals that have made that choice to treat their temporary layoff as a termination now, today, require the company to pay severance so you have more money to pay your bills and you don't take the risk of the future.
All right, we will have to leave it there, but so many questions. Keep them coming because we want to have you back to be able to answer some of them. Lior Samfiru, thank you so much.